Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are diving deep into a SwiftUI feature.
hmm
It's incredibly useful for, cleaning up your interfaces and making lists way more interactive. Swipe actions.
Yeah, definitely. We've been digging into excerpts from an article, Editing Mastering Swipe Actions in SwiftUI. That's our guide for this.
Right. And our mission, really, with this deep dive, is to properly grasp SwiftUI's swipe actions.
Yeah, not just how they work, but sort of why they're such a powerful tool.
Exactly. For developers building those, intuitive, space-efficient interfaces, especially for lists,
Which are everywhere in apps.
everywhere.
Okay.
Think about like your email or your to-do list app. Swiping a row to delete it, mark it done.
That's the pattern.
That's exactly what we're talking about. So we'll cover the basics, like adding a single action.
Right. And then handling multiple actions, too.
Yeah, and controlling the swipe behavior itself, and even, navigating some tricky bits.
Like those animation quirks?
Exactly. Those little flickers you can get when deleting things, especially if you add a confirmation step.
Right, yeah. It's a pattern users know really well, and SwiftUI gives us a pretty elegant way to implement it.
Okay, so foundation first. What are swipe actions, fundamentally?
Well, they came in with iOS 15, and Swipe Actions is basically a modifier in SwiftUI.
Okay.
You attach it to items in a list, so rows inside a list, or maybe a for each.
Right.
And the whole idea is to give users quick, relevant actions just by swiping the item left or right, horizontally.
Instead of having, like, permanent buttons sitting there taking up space.
Exactly. It just keeps your main UI much cleaner, more focused. Actions only show up when the user, swipes.
Right, when they signal intent.
Yeah. Makes the experience more efficient, less cluttered visually.
Okay, I definitely get the why. Makes total sense. Now, the how. How do you actually add one? Let's take the simplest case, maybe a delete action on the right side.
Okay. So you apply the .swipe actions modifier directly to the view for your row.
So the H stack or text inside the for each.
Yeah. Whatever represents that row, that's where the modifier goes. And it takes a content closure.
A closure.
Yeah, like a block of code. And inside that closure, that's where you define the actual buttons that appear when you swipe.
And I guess the most common one is delete.
Probably, yeah. So you'd put a button inside that swipe actions closure.
Okay.
And for dilution, you often give it a role, specifically role.destructive.
Ah, and that gives it the red color automatically.
Right, that's standard iOS red styling that tells the user, hey, this deletes something.
And making the button look right. Adding an icon, maybe?
Yeah, you use the button's label closure for that. The article shows using a label view.
Oh, right, label.
Yeah, it's great because it combines text, like the word delete, with a system image, like a trash.circle.fill. SwiftUI handles laying it out.
Nice. Okay, button defined, looks good. What about the action? Making it actually do something. How does that connect to my data?
Ah, yeah, the crucial part. Inside the button's action closure, the other part of the button, that's where your logic goes.
Okay.
For deleting, you usually need to figure out which item was swiped.
Find its index.
Exactly. Maybe using something like first index of on your data array. And then you just remove it from the array, like courses.remove at first index.
And SwiftUI just handles the animation.
Yep, because it's all data-driven. You change the data array, SwiftUI sees the change, and it animates the row right out of the list. Pretty neat.
Okay, that makes sense for one action on the right, the trailing edge, right?
Correct.
What other controls do you have? Like how it behaves or where the actions show up?
So the swipe actions modifier itself has a couple of useful parameters you can pass in.
Okay.
One is edge. You can set it to leading for swipes from left to right or trailing for swipes from right to left.
And if you don't specify.
It defaults to .trailing, so the right side.
Got it. So that controls the side. What was the other one? Allows full swipe.
Right. That's a Boolean, true or false, and it defaults to true, meaning if it's true, a full swipe across the screen, a really long swipe, will automatically trigger the first action you defined in the closure.
Like a shortcut.
Exactly, a shortcut for the user. If you set allows full swipe to false, though, a full swipe doesn't do anything automatically. The user has to tap the button after they reveal it.
I see. So that gives you control over how eager the swipe is. A full swipe delete could be super fast, but maybe too fast if it's something critical or easy to do accidentally.
Exactly right. It's a design choice. Depends on how common the action is, how easy it is to undo, that kind of thing.
Okay, simple actions covered. What if I want, say, two actions on the same side?
Yeah.
Like delete and favorite.
Pretty straightforward, actually. You just add more button views inside the same SwipeActions content closure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the article shows adding a favorite button right next to the delete button, both triggered by a trailing swipe.
And for favorite, you're not removing the item. You're just changing its data.
Correct. You'd need, like, a property in your data model. Maybe is this favorite, a Boolean. The favorite buttons action would find the item's index again, and then just toggle that as favorite property, course-index.us favorite.toggle.
And SwiftUI sees that change and updates the row. Maybe shows a little heart icon or something.
Exactly. The UI reflects the new state.
Can you change the background color of those buttons?
Yeah.
Like make favorite green and delete red?
Yep. You use the .tint modifier, apply it directly to each button inside the closure. So tint.green on the favorite button, .tint.red on the delete button. That's especially useful if you don't use the destructive role for some reason, which we should probably talk about later.
Okay.
And yeah, by default, multiple buttons in one SwipeActions modifier show up side by side on the same edge.
So if I put favorite and delete in one, that SwipeActions edge.trailing, they both pop out on the right.
Correct.
But what if I want delete on the right and favorite on the left, like lots of email apps do?
Easy fix. You just apply the SwipeActions modifier twice to the same row view.
Nice.
Yeah. One modifier call would be SwipeActions edge.trailing with your delete button inside.
Okay.
And then you add another .SwipeActions edge.leading modifier with your favorite button inside.
I see. So you chain them.
Well, you apply them both to the same view. SwiftUI figures out which set of actions to show based on which way the user swipes.
Clever. Okay, let's circle back to deletion for a sec, because often you want confirmation, right? And are you sure alert? How do you wire that up with SwipeActions?
Yeah. For anything destructive or hard to undo, an alert is good practice. In SwiftUI, this usually means bringing in its state variables.
Right, state management.
You'll typically need at least two. One Boolean state variable to control if the alert is showing or not. Let's call it show alert. And probably another optional state variable to hold on to, which specific item the user swiped on, the one they might delete, like selected course.
Okay. And the delete button in the swipe action itself, its action changes then. It doesn't delete immediately.
Exactly. That's the key. The swipe delete button's action doesn't perform the deletion anymore.
Okay.
Instead, its job is just to set selected course to the item that was swiped and set show alert to true.
Triggering the alert.
Right. That state change makes the alert appear. You attach the alert modifier somewhere higher up, like on the list maybe. You bind it to your show alert variable, and you use the presenting parameter, passing in selected course.
So the alert knows which item it's talking about.
Precisely. And inside that alert, you have your actual confirmation buttons.
Like cancel and delete.
Yeah. A cancel button, probably with roll.cancel, which just dismisses the alert. And then the real delete button, which should have roll.destructive.
Okay.
And the action closure for that button inside the alert, that's where the actual course's .remove at .index code lives.
Got it. That flow makes sense. But now, the article mentioned this flicker issue with .destructive. What's that about? Especially in this alert scenario.
Yeah, this one. It can definitely trip people up. So the problem happens if you have a button with roll. Destructive.
The one in the swipe action.
Yes, the one in the swipe action itself. If that's the first action and allows full swipe is true, the default, and its action doesn't delete immediately but shows an alert instead.
Okay, that specific combination.
Right. What happens is SwiftUI sees destructive and allows full swipe, and it sort of optimistically assumes, okay, full swipe means delete. And it starts animating the row sliding off the screen immediately on a full swipe.
Even before the alert code runs.
Exactly. But then your code runs, shows the alert, and maybe the user hits cancel.
Oh, no.
Yeah. SwiftUI suddenly has to go, whoops, never mind, and it snaps the row back into place abruptly.
Ugh, that sounds terrible. That's the flicker.
That's the flicker. Really jarring.
Okay, so how do we avoid that? What's the fix?
The key fix the article points out is pretty simple, actually. When your swipe action button's only job is to trigger that confirmation alert, don't give it the destructive role, just make it a standard button.
But then it won't look like a delete button.
But you make it look like one using .tint.red. Apply that tint modifier to the standard button.
I see. So you get the red color, the visual cue.
Exactly. The visual cue is there.
But SwiftUI doesn't treat it as immediately destructive on a full swipe.
Precisely. It won't do the optimistic animation. The actual deletion logic, remember, is inside the alert's confirmation button.
Right.
And that button does get roll.destructive. And one more crucial detail for smoothness.
Yeah.
Inside the action closure of that alerts delete button where you have courses.remove at indexum, wrap that line of code with animation.
Why animation? Why there?
That tells SwiftUI to animate the row removal smoothly only when the user actually confirms the deletion in the alert, not before. It gives you that nice, smooth animation, but at the right time.
Wow, okay. That's subtle, but sounds really important for a polished feel. Avoid the roll on the swipe button, use tint instead, keep the roll on the alert button, and wrap the actual removal in with animation.
You got it. That tackles the flicker issue nicely.
That's a super valuable tip. Managing confirmed deletions is so common. Okay, one more thing. What about making the actions themselves dynamic? Can they change based on the item?
Oh, absolutely. The SwipeActions modifier, like lots of SwiftUI modifiers, takes a content closure, right?
Yeah.
Well, inside that closure, you can put regular SwiftUI views, and that includes using conditional logic, like if statements.
So you could have an if statement inside the SwipeActions block.
Exactly. You could check a property of the item.
Like only show an unfavorite button and maybe a set priority button if the item is already a favorite.
That's precisely the kind of scenario the source material describes. If item.isFavorite is true, maybe the leading swipe shows unfavorite and priority.
Okay.
But if item.favorite is false, maybe that same leading swipe just shows a favorite button, or maybe no buttons at all on that edge.
So the available actions adapt to the item's current state.
Makes the interface feel much more responsive and relevant. Offers only the actions that make sense at that moment.
That is really powerful. Okay, so kind of summarizing the main takeaway here.
SwipeActions are just a fantastic tool in SwiftUI for improving the user experience with lists. They add these contextual actions right where you need them on the row itself.
Keeps the main screen clean.
Right, and it uses an interaction pattern that users are already very familiar with on iOS.
And the best practices the article stresses. Any key things to remember?
Yeah, basically. Use them thoughtfully. Don't cram too many actions onto one row. That gets confusing.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. Make sure the actions are actually relevant to that specific item. Their purpose should be clear just from the icon or label. And, try to be consistent with general iOS guidelines.
So they should simplify things, not add complexity.
Exactly. That's the goal.
Okay. So understanding these techniques, simple actions, multiple buttons, controlling the edge and allows full swipe, handling deletions properly with alerts, fixing that flicker issue, making actions dynamic. It seems like knowing this really helps you build more polished, more intuitive apps, especially anything involving lists in SwiftUI.
For sure. Mastering this modifier definitely elevates the usability of list-based interfaces quite a bit.
Okay, so thinking about that advice, using them judiciously, keeping actions clear, relevant, consistent. Here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Given that emphasis on clarity and relevance, what kinds of list items or maybe what specific types of actions might actually not be a good fit for swipe actions? Where might they cause confusion? And how would you decide if an action belongs in a swipe gesture versus, say, a detail screen button or somewhere else in your app's UI? Something to ponder as you start using these yourself.